Hi everyone, Randy Martin here. I thought I'd share with you guys something I've been wrestling with for quite a while. It has to do with the electrification of vehicles, the EVs that are coming out, as well as the increase of the grid to support this, both in terms of production and distribution of the electrical grid to be able to support the replacement of gasoline vehicles throughout. I don't think the project is impossible. I think the timeline set out by our governments is probably unrealistic. I don't think in Canada we'll be able to meet that by 2035 or whatever the year they decided on. And part of it is I've been looking for an investment opportunity through this, because wherever there's a problem, there's an investment opportunity. And I kept finding commodity opportunities, like commodities for copper, zinc, aluminum, graphite. Those commodities are likely to go up in price, same as lithium and even gold and silver, over this probably next decade or so, maybe a bit longer. But I don't really like commodities that much because they don't make a profit. They don't produce something for value. They add no value. You're just buying them or buying futures for them and hoping somebody will buy it from you later at a higher price. So it's not really my forte unless you're hedging. That's a topic for a different video. So I came to the conclusion, though, that we're probably heading for an oil and natural gas super cycle, as we're going to have to build all these projects for all the increased capacity of electricity. So we're going to need more hydroelectric, we're going to need wind farms, solar farm. We're probably, although begrudgingly for some, going to need natural gas power plants and potentially some nuclear power plants to meet the extra demand of charging, as well as all the extra demand that's going to, or not demand, but replacing the existing non-renewable, or either let's call them dirty energy sources. So as this happens, these projects currently can only happen with the current energies that we have, which are mostly oil and natural gas. Preparing land for transmission lines to come from a hydro dam way up north into a populated urban area requires a ton of machinery, heavy machinery, tractors, bulldozers. They all run on diesel. The people that make parts for these, as well as their lubricants, they all run on natural gas and the petroleum or petroleum byproducts subsequently. Same thing comes for producing all the wind and solar farm. We don't currently have the capacity, unfortunately, to produce them all with green energy. So until we can convert, we're going to be stuck using the energy we have to replace it with the energy we want to have. Which this leads to an oil super cycle. What I mean by that is the commodity of oil and natural gas is likely to rise in price over the next decade because its demand will rise over the next decade quite increasingly. I think just copper, it might be graphite, we need 18 times more production in North America to meet the needs. The last time we doubled production was World War II, so going by a factor of 18 is quite high. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but to do that, you need a lot of extraction tools and you need a lot of processing facilities, all of which demand an increase in energy resources. So you'll need oil and petroleum products to do the extraction. You'll need likely natural gas to run the plants that do the refining and processing of the material, not to mention the transporting, which is probably going to happen by train and heavy trucks, 18-wheelers. So as you move all these things around to create, let's call it a better future of renewable energies, you're going to be using the old energy or the energy we have. Now, a super cycle is just like a regular cycle of commodity. If you remember, probably 10 or 15 years ago, maybe a bit more now, we saw this happen with copper. There's a very, very high demand for copper. The price went sky high. I think it went from 2,000 a ton to 18,000 a ton. Don't quote me on that, but it was quite a spike for copper and bronze and all those copper derivatives, which led the industry to start ramping up its production capacities. New facilities were built, new deposits were beginning to be explored and excavated, and then the cycle ended like it usually does. So people finished the projects that demanded all this extra copper at the time, and the production had increased, which led to a plateau in demand and subsequently a decline in demand, and then an excess in production, which can only lead to a lowering of the price because you now have more supply than you do demand. When we talk about a super cycle, instead of this happening over a 3 to 5 year period of going up and then going back down, we're talking 5+ years, 5.5 years on average for a super cycle. In this case, I'm thinking it's probably going to be a decade or maybe a little over a decade of oil and natural gas on a super cycle for us, which means oil and natural gas can probably make a lot of new millionaires again, like they did before, like oil has done many times over, probably through the 70s. But I really think it's a good bet. Now, I don't want to bet on the oil as a commodity, because again, that doesn't create a profit. But I think the entire supply chain, from exploration, extraction, transportation, conversion or refining, and then transportation and distribution, all will make higher profits because of a higher demand for the commodity. And that's where I want you to focus as you're looking for stocks. Look for these companies. Look for good companies that are fairly priced, that are positioned to do very well. Oh, and by the way, before I let you go, I'm not the only one thinking this, I think, because I noticed that Warren Buffett started acquiring Occidental Petroleum in the States probably 2 years ago now, maybe a bit more. And I think he's still acquiring shares today for Occidental Petroleum. So I think somebody else, a very famous investor in this case, also sees potentially an oil super cycle in our future. Thank you.